and it's preparing. Hopefully it's meeting that Zoom. I can stay within Zoom. It's having an application program interface, an API, shaking hands with Zoom, and it seems like it works perfectly. Okay. So I'll move this down and then I can ask any questions. Okay, welcome back. What I want to do tonight is continue talking about Gen AI and some products. I'll talk about our assignment for next week. I'll also talk about our exam, preparations for our exam. I'll start even today. Next week, I'll give you some details about our exam. I'll give you basically almost like a study guide of list of terms you need to know. The format of the exam, let me talk about it now. The format of the exam will be in the computer lab in the School of Business in room 204. We'll meet at the time of the class of 6:35. You can come a few minutes early. We'll be doing it on the computers in the lab, but could there possibly be, Quinn, any issues with my hardware? Got any? And me being in the business for a while, I know there's always going to be issues. So what do I have to do? It's like we talked about controls, prepare for backup and recovery, business continuity, in case I have some computers that are down, right? Just like we were talking about business continuity, I have to come up with some ways to get around it. So what could I do for controls, Quinn? You understand what the problem is? I have computers there. We're going to be hooking to the internet. We're going to be using Respondus, and I have my exams will be taking it through Blackboard. So
yeah, should bring our own computers just in
yeah,
case
bring your own.
computers
Everyone's
down.
required to bring your own laptop. We hope and have Respondus downloaded on your computer. So just in case I have more computers in that physical room than my student numbers, but you never know that we always have backup, right? That you can say, hey, what am I going to do? Well, you can always flip up your computer and you can gain access to it. But for our sake, I've talked about it before. Everything that you do in this class up to the exam was open book, open note, open internet, open people. The only time everything is going to be closed, except for your mind, is on the tests. So what I'm going to do is the test will be set in two parts. One part will be like the quizzes, multiple choice, true, false, mostly multiple choice questions. And there'll be another part of open-ended questions. The multiple choice will be very similar to the quizzes that you took, to the multiple choice that you saw in Wiley. And guess what? Also can be coming from something like Notebook LM, right? That is asking you, right, Sydney, a number of multiple choice questions. You have all those multiple choice questions you'll have available to you, right, in the audit area, that you can even not only check your group, but you can even, if you'd like, you can check your other groups. It'd be interesting to see on Notebook LM, do they give repetitive questions? You know, when I ask, it may be the way in which you ask those questions, rather than saying, give me 5 multiple choice questions with the key, with the answers based on this material, meaning that I would like to prepare for an exam, and maybe if I were in chapter, let's say 4, I would concentrate maybe on areas in which you feel less secure about, and then give me questions based on controls, access controls, physical controls, communication controls. So you can even narrow it down. Another part where I told you about it'd be interesting is once you ask for the multiple choice questions in that chat area of Google Notebook, is then copy those and paste them into the sources and then do the podcast. And then make that podcast available to be publicly shared. So you could even just listen to it as you take a walk or something like that. So that is an option too. The open-ended questions, what I'll do on the open-ended questions for everyone is I'll give you, let's say, 4 to 6 questions, open-ended questions, and I'll choose out of those, I'll choose 2 of them. So ahead of time, Finley, you'll have those questions, those open-ended questions, and I will choose from those that I give you. So those 4 to 6 questions, I will choose 2 of them. So it won't be, Finley, to me, it's just so impossible. What could I ask you? I mean, every day it changes right here that we see. There'll be so many things. So this kind of not only eases stress levels, but it also, I think, gives you a way in which you can answer the questions more intelligently and considerably better than just being popped in and just trying to make up something, because it's going to be closed, book and everything else. It's not like before. Okay, so that's how the format will be. You'll bring your pictured ID to the exam. You'll check in and check out to make sure for authorization purposes you are who you say you are, right? In that way we can do that. Any questions about the exam? Anything that I need to do? So what today is, I'm going to go over the assignment. I made a couple of changes on the assignment. I saw there was a couple issues there. I want to go into more in depth on data and security. And any impressions of I have my own impression, any impressions of the Chief Information Security Officer talk? Greta, were you here? Or just your camera was off last time?
Yeah, I was here. Yeah,
Okay,
my
what are
phone
your
was off now.
impressions? We're not,
I mean, it was interesting to like hear his takes. I feel like we just don't really think about what's going on behind the scenes. And I thought it was interesting how he was saying that there's a lot of like security breaches and like a lot of like data stealing on the days of like football games where like everyone's like in the system and stuff. So I thought that was interesting.
uh-huh. Okay. And what was your impression, Catherine?
I'm in the library, so I can't really talk that much.
Okay, how about the other Catherine? Catherine Bremer?
I thought it was really interesting and it made me understand more why we use like the duo code every single time we have to log in and stuff because I don't know. I kind of wondered about that. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
and my impression is they don't do a good enough job of communication. Sydney, if you think about like marketing, there's so much in the background that I think they would be doing well of, why am I doing all these restrictions? Giving awareness. And also what was interesting to me is employees have to take a security awareness module, and they're requiring that. And it was interesting that they're not requiring that of students. And when you think about it, students, I think, are the most vulnerable. Anyone ever see, it's an old movie. I don't even think probably most of you, it was called Catch Me If You Can. Anybody hear about it? It was a movie of this con artist, and it was done really well. And this con artist, what he did is he pretended to be a number of people. He was a doctor, pretended to be a doctor. He pretended, it was based on a real story. He pretended to be a surgeon, airline pilot. I mean, it was the most outrageous kind of things that he was. And he was a computer hacker. And he went to prison. And then when he came out, the FBI hired him. You know, it's almost like those hackers that if you think about all those, I think the CISO may have mentioned it as well, but there's a number of people that after they've been in jail or maybe that's part of their deal plan, is they work for the other side. You know, they're the criminals, and then let me work for the good guys, supposedly. You know, the good guys, and I'll tell you how a hacker thinks. You almost have to be a hacker mentality to prevent another hacker. It's almost like almost of the terrorists and things like that. So it was interesting. So I went, you know, I'm involved in a number of tech companies and doing it. So I was invited to the Four Seasons for a dinner, and the real guy was there giving a dinner. And I must say, you know, it was from a company, a tech company, that they hired him. So they must have paid him a lot for his speaking engagement. And I still remember the dinner. You know, it was lobster and steak. I mean, it was all 9 yards. And I, you know, never eat steak and lobster, and I enjoyed it. But I must admit, and I've heard a lot of talks before, but a lot of people, but there was not, when he started speaking, and there was still, I think, steak and lobster on everybody's plate, there was no one was clamoring with their silverware. Everybody was like in awe. And I sat there, and I am very skeptical. If you know me, right, already, I don't believe anything anybody tells me. I want verification. This guy, I was like this the whole time. And I couldn't believe his story. And it was so convincing, his story, that at the end of my drive home, I guess it was the Four Seasons in Brick. On my drive home, I thought to myself, I was amazed how great he was. And then I thought I was conned. You know, I just got it after a half hour. I was conned. And what he said, I'll still remember. He says, who the hackers are after are not the people in healthcare, you know, or the old people in Medicare and things like that. Who they're really, his idea, who they're really trying to hack are university students. And the reasoning why was more amazing to me. The reasoning why, anybody want to guess? Why was he thought the biggest hacks would be for you guys. They're not going to be going after me. They're going to be going after you. And why in university settings, and why? Any idea? What do you think, Colin? Why would they want to go after you and not me?
Maybe because like you probably have like a future. So like, because you're coming out of college and you're gonna go into a job.
Exactly, Colin. He said they're gonna get your data, but they're not gonna hack you now. They're gonna wait 5 years.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna hack you, and then he said they won't relate it to the university. Because let's say, Colin, you graduate, right? If they hack you right now and do something, they know, okay, it's University of Miami, I have all the team. If you graduate and in 5 years, you get hacked and a bunch of you get hacked, you'll be in different places, and they won't even relate that it's coming from the university. They'll hold on to it for 5 years with that future. So that was kind of interesting to me on that. And then, yeah, so I'm glad that you found it, at least in that sense, you know, because I work with a number of these folks. I have some issues with them. They've heard my complaints about it, is that I think they just don't differentiate the values of things. Remember how we think about even that chapter on controls and everything's at risk. And sometimes I sense that they put everything at the same risk. Like getting into Blackboard as the same thing as getting into the medical system. Or like he says that, you know, they don't think about the idea of life and death kind of things, as I mentioned before. Another point that is interesting is that I don't think they educate you enough about the proper securities. And two, I'm not sure, you know, that reasoning for moving to Duo to Microsoft, if I buy it. I view it as a little bit skeptical there. It may be that Microsoft gave them a better deal, you know, in terms of, you know, we're a big user of Microsoft, you know, so I don't know about that. But he is, you know, he takes it seriously. And there's another thing that I wanted to share with you. People in that position don't last long periods of time. I'd say it's like a 4-year way, and then they move on to other positions or they move on to other places. And usually when they get hacked, you know, and it makes big news, that's the person they get rid of, and that person that they get rid of, he or she just goes to another organization. So they kind of just move around. That's why a lot of times they're good in networking to see which place they do, or they go to companies. I know a number of those that then they go and work for the vendors, and then the vendors then sell to the others. So our other one that happened as well. So that's interesting aspect to it. I think what I'll end up maybe for another class is invite the city of Coral Gables. I'm also the advisor to the city of Coral Gables. They try to be a smart city, and they have the chief information officer in charge of innovation. He's done a lot of different things. So I think I'll invite him with another guy from England to give us a presentation as well. Okay, so I think it's sometimes interesting to get their perspective that we can have. Okay, anything else I need to share? So let me just share. I appreciate it. Okay, I can get rid of this, I think. No, I don't want to cancel this. I want to go to my Zoom, Okay, so everybody see themselves kind of. We know that that's working. So let's see here. Okay, so first thing, what do I want to do? I want to look at what's due. So I know what's due is assignment 5. That's going to be for Monday, which is the audit assignment using what I call the dynamic voice AI assignment. The readings of information security, the adaptive assignment, and the quiz for information security. So let me do this. Let me just go to the audit area. Let me close this and go to K, audit. And under K audit, I see under the assignment groups, you'll see that there have been a couple. You should have gotten an email from Daniel that I asked them to make a few changes. If you look at this folder, then under dynamic voice assignment, make sure when you do the Zoom cloud recording link that you actually listen to it. The other thing is the generation of the notebook podcast takes about 5 minutes sometimes. You can see that this is kind of a way in which they're doing a lot of this beta, so it takes a while. So pause your recording and then make sure that you also publish the Notebook LM audio link, which is here. and make sure you post that. You'll use Zoom. So when you use Zoom, besides doing a cloud recording without password, make sure you have the AI companion, which you should have gotten out as well. And this area I want you to expand upon: the reflections, your issues, and improvement ideas. Reflect on how this was useful or not. I think a lot of this, we're using it in education, of course, in preparing you for exams. But I also want you to think about is this useful for business? And how could business possibly use that? So put some time into that. And also, what improvements do you see that you could see this being done? One of the improvements I see is like that podcast and me interacting, which is new. I'd like that to be recorded again. I'd also like to get the transcript of that podcast, that I wouldn't have to go to other sources. And this notebook LM multiple choice questions that it produces, when it produces in your chat area, go ahead and copy that and put it into your sources before you do your podcast. And then you have the answer key. And then you can see under the assignment groups, let me just go to a group here. Under the assignment group, then under the individual, make sure underneath here that you would put then each person in your group, similar to what you did here of Loom, QuickTime, and screen recording, put which chapters you have done. So make sure that you do that as well under the assignment group. Okay. Any questions? That's straightforward. Okay, Frank, do you have any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Frank, do you have any comments on the CISO guy?
I thought it was really cool that he mentioned that Waze and Google Maps is able to use our data to give it out to the insurance companies to see how we drive. That's just crazy, and it's kind of scary. Like, I don't
No,
want
your data is being used all the time.
I don't want
You know what I
my
mean? And
insurance
even when you,
company knowing
and the
that.
problem is, when he said, don't accept the cookies and just do like essential. First of all, what is essential? And number two, if you don't accept anything, a lot of times you can't go to any of these sites. And you can't,
If you don't do
and you
terms,
can't
they
use
won't let
any of
you
these.
be on it.
What?
If you don't accept their terms and conditions, they're just gonna not let you use it, which is
Yeah, that's it. Those are, the issues here. It really is, I really hate the fact that they're gonna, I have doubts about them going from Duo to Microsoft, that all of a sudden he says Duo, can be hacked. Well, I didn't want to be rude in the sense of give me examples where we were hacked, where we really hacked. But I think that is the thing. I don't like the idea, and I don't know if it's true, that by the next version of Microsoft, I have to have a face recognition. Right? This is what he claims. I don't know if it is completely true that I cannot use, Duo never asked me for any biometrics, but this new version of Microsoft is going to ask me for my biometrics. I really don't like that, Think about all our Gen AI that can clone our voices. Think about what they can do with, now taking all my biometrics. So it is, but the other idea is we're going to be underneath our mattress and I won't even be talking to you. You know what I mean? It's, and it's everywhere. I was at the dentist today, and, he was a guy in his 50s or something. And he was saying, oh, I'm scared of AI. And then I looked at the way he works. in dentistry. I said, you must be working when you went to dental school. I don't think you're working any differently. And, they were measuring me for something. I had to have like, impressions and stuff. A computer could do a much better job, of measuring. And they're sitting there with their little filer, giving me a crown. Give me a break, and he's complaining that, it's going to take away, 90% of that, looking at an x-ray. You know how they look at an x-ray? Oh, this is a little gray. To me, everything looks gray and white. How does he know? I think it's this. And I went to him because I wanted a second opinion, and they gave me two completely different opinions on the same x-ray. Wouldn't it be great that if you trained it, that the computer could be another part of that and say, hey, they could do a lot better job. And he maybe has experience of, let's say, 1,000 patients. Let's say. Think about it. I could train it for 1 million patients or 2 million patients, so there's trade-offs in all of this, and
think
I'm
about a possibility where one day the robots are actually the surgeons and they don't mess up.
Yeah, no, there's still
great.
now robotic surgery that does, that part. Radiology, I think, and x-rays. I personally had, some, pathologists give me completely wrong information, and then, what I made her do? I made her sit with me and go through all her slides. It was like I know nothing about pathology. I had an entire pathology session with her. And I said, well, how did you miss it? So she said, I don't know. And I said, well, if you had an AI, at least it would say, hey, look at this, it's patterns, right? So you could do it, but so it's going to take time in healthcare. Also in healthcare, it's, life and death, but there really can help looking at patterns, training it, going back. I know what the part of it, what's supervised learning. Supervised learning, Frank, is that I, as a human, know what the answers are. I'm giving it to the computer to train. When it makes a mistake, I can correct it, just like a person, right? I can correct it. And then I do unsupervised training, where then it picks up things that I don't know the answer and finds insight. So that it goes back and forth. You know what I mean? That part of it that we give up, but it's nothing's, black and white. It's all, grayed out there. So I just wanted to share that with you, that you can see it. But I liked it that you get his perspective, and he's extremely nice, and he's extremely, open. He tries out new technology, and when he didn't know, he, was able to say he didn't know, and he gave kind of ideas here. Okay, so we know we got that part. I know I have it. So let me do another couple of things with you here, showing you also how to prepare for the exam, and also kind of what's important. So let me go to Wiley Readings. Everybody go to Wiley Readings. And what I like to do sometimes is, Wiley has some problems with its servers and things too, but these are the chapters that we're going to have for the exam, right? From 1, the tech hardware, the tech software, data knowledge, and information security. And especially the last 2 chapters are key, because we're going to be working on that more and more. But let me just go. Also, you have here Wiley course resources, which have all the chapters, and it even has more materials if you want. So if you go into Wiley Plus resources, you see that it breaks it down to information security. And if you want to, this is just, if you would like, is you have videos by the author of the book. Be interesting. You have that. And let me just even go into one I'll show you here. Is they talk about unintentional threats to information systems and deliberate threats to information systems. So you can see that the CISO was talking about the unintentional threats to information that we as end users not intentionally, start clicking on links, some of it that we don't know, but there's also deliberate threats. And in the deliberate threats to information systems, that means what? That someone had an intention to do harm. It's like what he called bad actors, from espionage to sabotage to theft of equipment, right? And it's usually compromised intellectual property, software attacks, cyber, terrorism, cyber warfare. You can imagine what's that. Basically, we don't even know all of what's happening behind the scenes, of course. Only after it's done do we even get a whiff of what's happening. But if you go down here, you can look at some of these multiple choice questions as well, they basically, like in this scenario where a person infiltrates a company and steals proprietary information, what kind of deliberate attack is being executed, whether it's competitive, industrial, trade show, things like that, extortion. So you can look through those types of questions. Ransomware, that's what I was asking. So if you think about Greta, the ransomware is basically shutting down like the hospital system here. What do is they basically invade, they don't have the proper controls, they invade the servers where health records are. They're able to shut it down and say, listen, university, hospital XYZ, will be happy to allow you to get into your system that you have surgeries tomorrow, right? If you do what? You pay us. And notice, I found it interesting, is their payments was through what? Through the insurance company. They're the ones that probably have Bitcoin accounts, right? So the university doesn't have to say they have Bitcoin accounts for that, right? And then the protections, what they're using here, which is interesting. But what I wanted you to look at, here's some questions here, but what's a primary attack? How do they get in? Here's some multiple choice questions, but what I think is you can go through some of those questions you can get, for studying. People were asking me this table 4.2. Everybody put a note here. When you go to the book, look at table 4.2. Types of software attacks. And in there, this is how it's broken up. This is how the authors of the book describe it as remote attacks. So it's from outside, it's requiring user action. What's difficult here, what I think is, who is the user? Am I the user? You're the user. Who is the user? But it's basically saying like viruses attached to another program. And if I open up a program, I'll get it. A lot of times I'll download. I think that's what also the CISO was trying to make you understand, is you want to go to reliable, you have less of a chance, not completely zero, that if you go to a reputable source downloading software, you will not get a virus. What a worm is, what a phishing attack, basically attacking for sensitive personal information by masquerading as official, looking for emails like they are coming from someone that I know, but it's really not them. Spear phishing, where it's specifically looking for individuals, certain individuals to obtain sensitive information. This is called remote attacks requiring user actions. This is where I want you to pay attention. This is what the book calls remote attacks needing no user action. So on the multiple choice questions, I think even on the quizzes from chapter 4, there was a question like that. And the answer, I think it was denial of service attack versus a distributed denial of service attack. So these, if you see a multiple choice question for remote attacks needing no user action, put that in mind. So this is when an attacker sends so many information requests to a target computer that it basically ceases to function. And this is what they use at universities. This distributed denial of service attack, what this is, it's just not one computer attacking other servers, but it's what they call like bots or a whole botnet. It's almost like you see those drones that come in completely. You have a distribution denial of service. And how does it affect universities is in the network. When we all log into the network, if they don't have the proper controls, what they're afraid of the university is they will then attach to our computers. We all kind of attach with our laptop computers into the network. Then they put a piece of software onto our systems and we don't even know it because it runs in the background. It then is one of their, my computer then becomes one of their bots in their botnet, and I help them attack another server. Do you understand that, Greta? So that's kind of, this is more lethal than this. And this, they don't even have to buy computers. They don't even have to, I'm sitting on the network, not even aware that I'm part of this gang. Think about it, like a drive-by shootings or something. I'm part of this drone attack and I'm one of the drones and I don't even know it. So this is the key. So what happens here, these attacks by a programmer developing a system in a way is not clear, because here it says needing no user action. You'd think here the user is the end user, but this is attacks by the programmer. So this and this section are different. So this is when software is infiltrated by a programmer that hides in another computer program when I'm downloading it, or a back door where they say typically a password known only to the attacker allows him access the computer system, or a logic bomb that sometimes they'll do that for disgruntled employees. Those disgruntled employees will leave and then say, hey, it's almost like the idea what Colin said is, I'll go steal university's data and then I'll get you maybe 5 years later, this logic bomb after I leave my place of work, maybe it'll go off in 6 months and they won't attribute it to me. So this is important for you to look at. And even in doing that chapter 4 notes there on that remote attacks there. So this is what then you can see here. You can check your what type of attacks request to target a computer system to cause the crash, right? So this is sending numerous requests to target the computer system. So these are questions that you should look at. And then the other part where I think is the issue here is you cannot, software that we're talking about before you go on, is that, let me just see this again, is the idea here is those deliberate attacks. And then what's important also to note, and he alluded to it before, is this: information security controls. Make sure that life is like this. There's no 100% guarantee. I step out of my house, my security is compromised. Even in my house, my security, is compromised. Risk, I have to assess it. I know there is risk. I just have to say what I want to do is mitigate it. The way that I mitigate it, I lessen it, is the idea of what they call information security controls. You need to know about this information security controls. And when you think about it, it's a way in which organizations put in controls, and you do it even in a daily life, but it's implementing those where I want to protect what? My information assets. A lot of times it's not even information, right? I want to protect my building. I want to protect my employees. Remember, I want to protect a number of things, but here we're talking about information assets, and the way that they do it is by controls, or what we call countermeasures. So what there is there's going to be diverse threats into an organization, and what we want to have is layers of control, layers that we can do it, and they're going to be it. So this area here is very simplified, too simplified in my mind, but there's the physical controls. So we're going to be in the computer lab taking our tests in room 204. What do they have? They have an ID system to let you in. Notice there's a back door, and maybe in the back door somebody puts, as I said before, a brick there that you don't understand. And then there's a way in which there's access controls into the system. This is the physical, right? I'm going to put a fence in. I'm going to put a guard there. I'm going to put a building door. I'm going to lock it, right? One of the things I used to have when we had more of the computer labs is what they ended up doing is they used to have it not locked. They used to have a memorial building. They used to have it between 8 and I think like 10 o'clock at night. They used to keep the doors open. There were automatic doors. So they said, why bother with that? We'll have automatic doors so everybody that, is part of the university when they have classes can go in. What happens in March 10th this year? Frank, what's on March 10th this year at the university? What's special about it? That week.
Is that around the exam date, or?
Our exam is March 3rd. What's on March 10th? What's that week? Colin, what's in that week?
It's spring break.
Spring break.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically scheduled between 8 and 10, it'd always be open, the calendar, and they started it from January, what was it, 15th or something, to May 15th. What did they forget? They forgot spring break. There's no classes. 2 years in a row, they stole computer equipment in those labs. 2 years in a row. Why? Because it must have been an inside job, right? But they knew that they kept it open. So those ideas of those physical controls, there's somebody needs to be auditing and seeing what are they being done here. And those access controls is the same thing of how they're going to access it. And here you can think about it is I need to protect it with those, basically, when I think about it. So here they talk about physical controls, the access controls, and it's the same thing where he's talking about access controls restrict unauthorized individuals from using information systems. And what do I want to do? Authentication confirms the identity of the person requiring it, and authorization, look at this, Greta, determines which action rights or privileges the person based on his or her verified identity. This sounds like actions, rights, or privileges, just like we've had in the class, right? Your roles, your action, what rights do you have, and what privileges that you're having, and how do you authenticate yourself? An organization can use one or more of the following, and this is what he also said. Something the user is, and that's the biometrics, which I don't like, right? Retinal scanning, all this, right? That they give it something the user has, like those ID cards that I have those ID card, or something the user does. My voice recognition, they use that as well. Now in banking, we'll do that to match it. I'm a little skeptical about that. Think about now the cloning, Frank. What are they doing? They're cloning my voices so well, right? And my voice is public, right? How much is my voice public? Too public. It's not even through the university. How many talks have I given, throughout, that I've been recorded? And signature recognition, all that keystroke. This is where they're not even thinking about, but this is where the AI can just take over on, the bad actors. How easy is this going to be, to break? And all this password cracking now, it used to be, months. How long is that going to be taken for a crack? More and more, it's going to get a lot better, right? Finding all those combinations. How do they do drug discovery? But along those aspects here. So these are authorization. This is what I also like. After users have been authenticated, the rights and privileges to which they are entitled in the organization are established in a process called authorization. A privilege is a collection of related computer systems that a user is authorized to perform. Typically based authorization on the principle of what? Least privilege. What do I usually use? Instead of least privilege, what do I use, Greta? I usually say need to know. Right? But it's the exact same thing. I want to give you the least privilege that you can do my job. What I have my gripes about with chief security officers is that least privilege then doesn't allow me to do my job well. Like I told you, they basically were so scared. There must have been some data breach that even myself, that is in all these committees and advising all these CTOs and CIOs, I do not know what the data breach was, but it must have been very severe that they almost locked down all the faculty. And saying it came to the point that we will track you on your phone, and we will, you almost cannot use your computer unless you're in your office. And that is ridiculous, right, Greta, in this day and age. And then when Rasmus, the marine science, just went bonkers and say, we're out on a boat. We cannot do our research. We're getting millions of dollars from government grants and others to do our job. So then they had to modify it. You know what I mean? But there must have been something that we don't understand that, and I can understand it. It's nobody has bragging rights on that. You don't want to say, hey, don't worry. Everything that you're doing is at peril, So that is one. The other thing that's important for you to look at is, let me just do chapter 5 too, which is important. In data and knowledge management is managing data that I talk about. Governance. You remember I talked about governance. And Finley, you remember I talked about governance? What was data governance supposed to do? Finley?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you ever hear about data governance?
Did you talk about that on Monday?
Let me just go back to it. I'll tell you now. Let's pretend I didn't.
Okay, because I was not here Monday.
Yeah, right. Were you here Monday?
No.
Okay, so we'll say that I talked about on Monday. I'm just kidding. Okay. But basically, let's talk about this. This is good. We're rehearsing this like we rehearsed it, Finley. Okay.
Yeah.
We got data. You agree with me? We got more than we need to have with data. Every organization, every person, what is the problem is not that I don't have enough data. The problem is I don't know if it's accurate. I don't know if it's timely. I don't know if it's consistent. I don't know if it's relevant, right? So basically, organizations have a problem, and this is the problem with anything. How do I manage that data? What data do I collect? There's so much data about you, right, Finley, out there. What should the university collect on you? How should they use that data? There's a problem? What's your major again? Remind me, Finley.
Finance and real estate.
Okay, finance and real estate. And let's say I get a request for somebody's giving a scholarship for somebody that's studying real estate that's also a major in finance and is female that has a GPA over, let's say, 3.5. Let's just say that. And think about myself. I have the need to know. My privilege is what? To know about you based on my class. I know how you're doing in my class, right? We haven't finished the semester, but let's say even in the middle semester, I have all the data I need how you're doing in my class. They're looking for a GPA of 3.5. Do I have access to that? What do you think?
Not my full GPA, but I think you have access to the grade I have in your.
I have access to what you have here in mine, but I don't have your full GPA. And it's almost like that need to know. Maybe your advisor has it. Maybe in the finance group or the real estate group can find it, but I don't have it. I have access that I know what your major is, and I know, maybe what year are you?
Sophomore.
So I may have access that you're a sophomore. That's it. So the idea is the data becomes a silo, meaning that it's not shared among others when I need to know. So that's the problem of data when we think about that data that is covering, and then there becomes what we call, and this is key, data governance. And basically data governance for an organization, sometimes even for yourself, is how you're going to organize all your data, right? Your credit card information, your banking information, which subscriptions you have, right? But think about an organization like the university. They have to have an approach of how they're going to manage their data, their information across the entire organization. So it's not even just my class. It's not even my department. And it's not even the School of Business and the entire university and so forth. And then so this becomes a formal set of business processes and policies designed in data governance, Finley, to think about this naturally, is what are you going to collect in the university, and how are you going to keep it updated, and how do you even know if it's correct? So these are strategies that you have to have. And who owns that data? Who's going to keep it? Where do you live now? You live in the dorms or you live off campus?
I live in the dorms.
You live in the dorms. And let's say next year you're considering maybe moving off campus. Let's say yes. Moving off campus, yes. Well, when you change your address, how many places in the university do you think has your address? In a regular file system, it's not only, in this case, the finance department, the real estate department, the School of Business, basically financial aid, the registrar, basically the health center. I can go on and on. We don't even know. And if you change your address, who's going to have to update that address? Who do you have to change that address to? So you can think about it that these have to be accurate. This is the key here for what we call data governance. Does that make sense to you, Finley? There has to be people in the university that have to figure out what is my master data. Let's say they get the ransomware, they get hacked, somebody breaks into their, how are they going to recover? So all of this is crucial for you to understand in managing data. And then there's this thing called database approach. And the database approach, Finley, is different in the way that we think about a data file. I have your file and I just have your information, versus what they want to do in a database approach is this. This is key. This is, you'll see on the exam. The database approach, think about it, is let's concentrate our data in one area. And in order for us to use a database in one area, I'll record your name and address and all your demographics once, Finley. So when I will then, you update your address, how many times will it need to be updated? Once. So what, versus a file management where it's scattered throughout the university, the database system in theory says, let's do data redundancy. Let's reduce that same data rather than stored in multiple locations. We want to minimize data redundancy. Data isolation, meaning I don't know your GPA and maybe just one group knows your GPA, then I want to reduce that data isolation. So I can make a query to a database, give me all those females that have GPAs greater than 3.5 and also are finance and real estate majors. Right now, I can't get that because of data isolation and data inconsistency. This is the problem. What is it? That I have various copies of data that are not in agreement. One time it says that you live on campus. One time it says that you live off campus. Another time, maybe your parents' old address, maybe it's their new address. This is what I want to reduce. And this is what I want to maximize. Because I'm putting my data all in one spot, what's the risk? Now somebody knows where to attack. So what is it? I want to maximize data security. And that's why that CISO guy says he sleeps like a baby. Every 2 hours he's up and crying because this is what he's scared about. Now notice what I think they're doing is they're outsourcing almost all of this. The question is, somebody has to audit, and I don't even know who is doing that. Who are they hiring? Do you understand that, Frank? Is they're hiring these companies that are going to be doing, I don't know how good they are, and they're all dependent on hopefully doing that. And I think in the background, it's always, we got insurance, but they have to do some things for due diligence. And then it becomes data integrity. What does that mean? That if I have that data meets certain constraints, if social security number, it shouldn't have alphabetical characters in it. And data independence is that if we stop one software program, I don't lose my data. So this is key. Everybody understand this? You will see this. What do I want based on database? What do I want to minimize? And what do I want to maximize? And I want you to understand. They could be, you'll see that again. So this is kind of the idea they did. And then there's that data hierarchy. And then they do a number of terms on that. They have bits, which are zeros and ones. And then I have what they call a byte, which is a character. So if I look at your name, Finley, the F is a byte. It's really a character. And then they talk about a field. Think about all of this. Finley, you've used a spreadsheet before, of course, right? So if I have a spreadsheet, what is a field? Think about a field. Put this in your notes, is like a column in a spreadsheet. If I have, let's think about it, Finley, if I have a grade book, right, on a spreadsheet, I have first column is, let's say, C number. Second column is, let's say, first name, last name, test 1 and test 2. Let's just make it simple, right? And so what do I have? Fields are what? The C number. First name is a field, is a column, is called a field. The second one is last name. The third is then going to be test 1 and test 2. Those are fields, you know. So that's no big shakes. You know the term, but they're just using these ideas. So you see here that I have a bytes, I have a field, and then we got to figure out what is a record. A record, you know, think about our test grade book, right? What's a record? A record is a row. Put in your notes then, a record is a row, so I can think about, you know, Finley Lavlin basically, and all your students' name, right? Your grade, that's a record. Each row in a sheet is called a record. That's all. And the entire sheet you can think about is a table. And what you have then is you have related records. And if I look at, let me just see here if I can just do quickly. This is really good, right? Just like we talked about it. We have something, these are fields, student name, student ID, major, GPA, and graduation date. No big shakes, right? Finley? Sally, Adams, John, all these rows are called what? Records. Now what's important in looking at any of this data and these data tables is that I need to have what I call a primary key. A primary key will identify an individual record, and it will be unique. So my question to you then, which is a simple one, Frank, is what is the primary key in this table? You hear me, Frank?
Yes.
You want to repeat the question?
What the primary key in this table would it
What
be?
is the primary key in this table? And the definition of a primary key is that it's unique and it can identify a certain record.
The student ID.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. And it wouldn't be student name, and it wouldn't be major, and it wouldn't be GPA, and it wouldn't be graduation date. You know that. So that's it. So at the university, what do they give you? They give you C numbers. And why do they give you C numbers rather than student ID? And every C number, you know, is unique too. Your C number, I have a C number, you have a C number. Anyone associated with the university has a C number. Right, but I have a social security number. Do you have a social security number, Frank?
I do.
Yeah, so the question is, why are they using not social security numbers? The university. Do you understand my question?
I mean, if they used everyone's social, then it would definitely be a lot more easy to get leaked. And that's
Okay, so you're
also,
saying security. What else? Does
yeah, that would
everybody in the
be bad.
university have, does everybody in the university have a social security number?
Yes, but we don't
They
need
do?
to know everyone's social to, I think.
But do they? Is that a true?
Yeah. Yes.
That's not true. Do international students all have social security numbers?
Oh no,
Oh no, oh no. You think the university wants to have international students? You betcha. Do we want to be a university? You know, we have some advantages of that. Also, do they also want to have additional revenues, right? There's a number of reasons why we don't have international students. So that's it. So that's one of the reasons. Could be security, because this is what, and why, because this student ID thing or your C number is useless outside of this environment, right? Nobody's going to take your C number and, you know, get a credit card or get, you know, do Medicare fraud. So these are kind of things that you need to know about. So Sydney, do I need to stop here? It's enough? What do you think?
If you think so, I just have to.
Okay. So does everybody understand it? So what I want to spend time in, everybody understand how that you can access this. So what you can do, let me just do one more thing and then I'll let you go. So if I basically do any of this, right, my data, I don't want a video, right? Come up with. Oh, so do you see right here? This is database approach. You see this, Sydney? I'm using the Wiley. I went into 5.2 of the database approach. You see this line right here that's like diagonal? You see that, Sydney?
Yeah.
If I click on that, just so you know, I can, let me just end the session. I can have right up here, you see where it says quiz? I can click on that quiz and then get started. And then it gives me questions. Like a database operation comprised records of 2 or more tables, blah, blah, blah. I can check my answer. I can skip, you know, and then they can give me other terms for knowledge, a characteristic of interest, you know, a group of 8 bits make up blah, blah, blah. So I can go through the multiple choice questions there, just to give you that. So I'm stopping here.
I can do the attendance if you'd like, Professor.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Daniel. So much.
Have it loaded up.
And then you can put in the kid. So everybody understand kind of like where I'm going with this? I'll spend some time on Monday then giving you the terms, the questions for the exams, you know, for the exam open-ended questions, and then I'll spend some time reviewing what I think is important concepts for you. How does that sound? Sydney, okay?
Yeah.
And basically, and especially on the open-ended, I don't want it to be surprises. You know, if you've prepared, you should do well. Yeah, you know, why not?
Have you posted assignment 5 on the what's due folder?
Assignment 5 is in assignments 5, like the set of assignments.
Yeah, in the what's due tab. It's not, I haven't seen it.
It should be there. Refresh.
Thank you, Juan. Everybody's point of view. Is it there?
Yeah,
Juan's it there?
yeah,
Okay.
It's there, Juan.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for asking.
Yep.
We got the lead here, so you can let us know.
The
What?
quiz number 4 is not posted.
Meaning not posted, meaning you
Oh.
didn't get the grade?
No, she's
No,
right.
just
It's
yeah.
there now.
All right, thank you.
See, this is a group, Daniel, that helps us check each other, right?
The quiz I had queued, but I hadn't unhidden it. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me. That's why it's beautiful, and just make sure that that's done for the other sections too.
Yeah.
Because if you did it for this one. Thank you, Riley.
No problem.
That's why we're gonna need to check each other. So many different things that we need to do. See, our agents should be able to do all this, huh, Daniel?
That would be nice.
But I'm just saying, stuff like that, repetitive tasks that you can automate, that's what it's supposed to be done.
Maybe Blackboard should put a system together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should, right? All those repetitive things. What do we need to do? Then we can think about more exciting things, you know what I mean? Rather than the repetitive
It would be awesome
administrative tasks.
if they could clone all the sections or something.
Yeah. And that too. When you do one update, you did it from all of them.
The amount of time I've spent copying.
I know, and it's silly. Just say this is attributed, and you answer a question. Do you want everything back?
Yeah.
You know what? It had happened before, and I had done it, but it became confusing. Is that everyone would be registered in one site, and then the individual, that they could see all the assignments, and then the individual things would be per section.
That would be nice. But
I tried that one time, a while back, you know what I mean? But then it became, I don't know.
Too confusing.
What? It was confusing, but it was like everybody go to all the assignments here because it's the same, and then you would get your individual grades in the other place. Okay. Anyways,
I wonder if Canva does something like that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That they're moving to that.
Yeah.
Looks like that's what it's gonna be. And then they're and it's like everything else they're slow to move. And then Microsoft, Blackboard, you could see they gave us a slide where Blackboard was just losing market share, and it was really like this.
Yeah. I wonder if that'll be in time for next fall.
That's what they're planning.
That would be nice.
Yeah. So
we'll have to migrate everything.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're working on, and they're working on Blackboard would be more, but they'll supposedly Blackboard team, that's what they were saying, is now you're going to have to add more team members there to do it. Definitely I don't want to waste the time, and I don't want you to waste the time, of converting everything. Let them and there should be a way in which they could do that automatic conversion, right?
That would be nice.
That they know what Blackboard is. Things like that is something that those automations should be able to do. Okay, so who do we have left here? Catherine, that I don't know what happened to. Arena, do you have a question?